My name is Derek Evans. I've been a drummer for a while. I'm Brad's father.
Well, I started making music at about the age of 8. I began to learn to play the guitar then, and I wrote my first song at the age of 16 as an experiment to see if I could write a song at the age of 16. And from there until now has been the journey of a lifetime.
I started back when I was about 15. Bought my first drum kit. Uh, it was a mishmash of different drums, and I started back in 1977. I started.
It's always been in my life. I had three older brothers, and they were encouraged to get into music through my uncle, in fact. Uh, so from probably as far back as 3 years old, I I was heavily into music by that point. I didn't start playing until later, but I certainly would walk around making my own tunes. Uh, that seemed to come natural. I could visualize um, music in my head as well. Obviously from things I'd heard, but I could make new things in it, and I could hear them in my head. Then from I think it was about the age of 6 or 7, I asked for a guitar first of all, and I was bought this um, acoustic guitar, nylon strung acoustic guitar. And I learned a couple of chords on that. Nothing great, but I got my fingers around it because my brothers showed me what to play. But then I was starting to listen to more aggressive music. Like there's a band called Deep Purple, and I liked the way they sounded. There's an album called Machine Head, in fact. And the thing that I always thought is, up to that point, the guitar was the loud thing. That's what made most of the sound, big sound. I was into that, that ginormity. But when I started listening, I realised most of the big sound was coming off the organ. A guy called John Lord, and that was it. I needed to play keyboards because they were the loudest thing. So I started. From about 8, I started playing keyboards, and then I was followed up by formal training, where I was being trained to become a concert pianist. And during that time, obviously, this loud thing, which was probably very childish then, I started appreciating music in a much wider sense, and I became a classical musician, really. Something that's still with me to this day. So, yeah, I trained as a concert pianist for a number of years. I've done my grades, both in theory and in playing. And then I felt that I needed to express myself, and I didn't think I could express myself as much as I needed to through just playing. I wanted to write music, which, as I said, was inherent in me anyway. So that's where I went from there. Really, I started playing with bands, young bands, which we'll go into in a minute. But and I started writing music from there.
Well, I was doing an apprenticeship in electronics and electrical work, and I left school. And my boss in this, where I was doing my apprenticeship, was a very clever musician, and he used to tutor me in the theory of music, and became very interested in it. And and I bought a guitar and learned to play. And about 3 or 4 years later, applied for a job in a band at a local group who was advertising for a guitarist and a keyboard player. So I managed to get into the local group. That's how it started.
For lack of a better term, we got bored and decided to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, there was actually more to it than even that. I was like
really, really drunk actually in the local Wetherspoons, and I said to Josh, you know what, I think we should start a band. I think it would be a lot of fun. And that's literally the origin about it, but it was to do with being bored and starting the band as well.
Kind of get that it wasn't a boy band.
Yeah, same.
Would be the next One Direction.
Music has been the thread that has bound my life together from infancy, really. My parents would tell you that, if they were still alive, that at the age of 2, apparently, in my cot, when a certain advert would come on the television, I would bounce up and down to that particular piece of music. And it is a fascinating question which I still haven't been able to answer as to exactly what it is about music which provokes this reaction in me, this deep emotional reaction that I have no control over. So, yes, it is an enormous passion which has been with me from a very early age, and I'm thrilled to be able to say that it is as big a passion for me now as it was then, if bigger in some ways now than it was then.
Well, it's been my life, really. So, yes. Passion, yeah, it implies some sort of fluffy enthusiasm, but I mean, a lot of my existence is far from that, but it certainly it drives everything, really, in me. It's become, and also when I was younger, I mean, music was also a key to being noticed. I mean, I wasn't a particularly confident child. I was very shy. I've lost the shyness now a lot, but yeah, I wouldn't speak to anybody. And the music was a way of getting noticed. But as I got older and I outgrew those needs, then music became a much more pure enjoyment. And of course my listening became much more sophisticated of what I would listen to. In fact, I stopped listening to popular music in my early 20s because I just felt it wasn't good enough. It didn't offer me anything, new or enjoyable. And I think great art always surprises and makes you think. And that was not happening in popular music. So, yeah, I pretty well, from there on, my own passion for music has been for the pure art, hot side of music.
Exactly what you were saying about the uncontrollability of it all. It's just something that you have or you don't have. I think the depth of the effect that music has on you, I think you've got no control over. And of course, and then the more you listen to a wider range of music, just expands it, really, isn't it? For the good, I feel.
Sound.
Yeah, they're going sound. Yeah, they're twice a week at the moment, up in Fabian Way in Swansea.
I need to get new bass pedals because mine are currently buggered.
Yeah, and I need to look after my throat a little bit better as well. Maybe need to stop vaping as much because there are times where I just completely blow my vocal cords out. So yeah, but no, they're going okay. They're steady, they're steady.
Yeah.
53 years I've been playing the guitar, and there is a distinction between being a musician and, I guess, what I've become over the years is what you'd think of perhaps in older terms as a minstrel, but what would be called more in this day and age was a troubadour, because there is a distinction between being purely a musician where you play an instrument, but what I've somehow been able to do, and don't ask me how I've been able to do it, other than I've been driven to want to do it. My heroes are, many of them, well, all of them are people who are singer-songwriters, and they self-accompany. So I found myself being able to accompany myself, so it's voice and an instrument. So yeah, I mean, even then, starting off, I suppose that the voice was still there, even as I began to learn to play the guitar, I was learning songs, so I would sing. It is some might say it's not that much of a distinction, but I think you and I both know that there is a difference between one and the other. And it's not taking away anything
Lifestyle?
from anyone.
You consider it more of a lifestyle than just a...
I think for both of us, really, this isn't just about what we do, it's who we are, really. Because you can't separate, I don't feel that I can separate what I do from who I am. You know, I do not believe for any form of expression that you can separate the artist from the art and the art from the artist, no matter which way it manifests itself. You know, whatever you produce, you are part of it, and it is part of you. So it's an interaction between the two.
About 40 years. About 40 years, yeah. I had about 5-6 years off where I didn't play at all. So yeah, about 35 years overall.
44 years, if from when I started actually learning to play. Maybe, yeah, if you add a little bit of guitar in with that, I suppose it's about getting up to 46 years, I suppose. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's been a long time I've been playing. Doesn't make you any better. I think you can be world class in a few years if you've got it in you, or you can be hopeless after 50 years if you don't try hard enough. It's all about effort. I don't think music talent is. You can have raw talent, but you can also not exploit it. And the people who don't have the raw talent that work hard will always be better. And I think that's a lesson for everyone in all fields. I think as a family, we all had the natural ability, but not all of us have exploited it. Not even me, really. I could have exploited it a lot more. I mean, as I told you, I stopped being a concert pianist because I didn't want that workload, you know, and there's no way around it. You have to put the effort in. It's not because I'm lazy, it was just something I didn't fancy doing, I think. But yes, if you've got a talent, it will only take you so far. You've got to really exploit it, and that means work. There's no golden rule. That's the only rule. Work. And if you do, you get better. If you don't do, you don't get better. Simple as that.
49 years. That's I think it's 49. I was 16 when I had a guitar first. So that's, yeah, I think, is that right?
My first guitar was made out of
You won't tell.
plastic, right? Red plastic, and it had a humbucker over the sound door with a little, and you wouldn't think of it. It was more of a child. I was 8, and I learned my first 3 chords on a D, G, and A major, and you know how many songs you could play out of D, G. You know, I mean, there's an entire repertoire, 3 chords there.
What, you know that many?
Exactly. I haven't bothered to learn anymore.
Yes, my first guitar was second hand, of course, and it cost £2.15.
Like,
Worth paying the extras.
Well, I'd want, this is bizarre. Right? I'd wanted a guitar from the age of 6, right? But because you couldn't really buy, and I was little, obviously. So my mum and dad, in their infinite wisdom, they thought, well, we'll try him out with this now. And they had my great uncle's violin, which had no bridge on it and no strings. And seriously now, an empty cotton reel, right? And 4 elastic bands.
We used to dream of elastic bands.
That was my first guitar. And then at the age of 8, I had this red plastic thing. And I had that for about a year. I remember lending it to some girls for a carnival. They came back and my neck was snapped off it. And then, luckily enough, I had a headmaster come to school, David Price, and he had his own guitar, and there was a guitar also in school. And he lent me the school's guitar. And then a couple of years after that, I bought my first proper acoustic guitar, which was a 3/4 scale nylon strung classical type. Yeah. And that was the gateway then.
Well, it's what I know I can do, and it's what I know that I'm half decent at. Singing might
Rock
be
it there.
singing might be the wrong term though for me. It's more
Vocals.
growling. Yeah, it's more growling. It's more
Snarling.
my kind of thing. Yeah, but yeah, it's for me. I find it comfortable. I wouldn't be comfortable doing anything else simply because it's not where my talents lie. So yeah, I'm finding it enjoyable.
I reckon you could rock the triangle.
Yeah, 100%. Or the bassoon.
Nice bassoon solo, bit of a breakdown.
Proper, I suppose I would have been in my early 20s then, but there were things in secondary school. I had the gross misfortune. It's still a mystery how this happened, but I seem to have ended up in an all-boys grammar school for my secondary education, and there was a very strong musical element to it. So I do recall working with little ensembles. For a variety, David's Day concerts would come along and we would work with a variety of different people, but they weren't ongoing. So there were, a variety of little things like that I was involved with, but I would have said the first sort of permanent outfit I would have been involved in, although I did many solo things up until that point, but I would have been about 23 then, and I became involved with some people that are still in the area. Outstanding singer-songwriters, and was for the next few years was an incredible education and a wonderful experience.
Probably, I was 14. I'd been playing the keyboards for quite a while by this point, and it was round about the time where I was starting to think, well, I want to write music rather than just be a concert pianist, because that was very in order to be an efficient piano player, especially if you're doing concerts with orchestras, that has to be 8 hours a day practice, or at least 3 to 4 hours. It depends on the person, but you've got to keep your hand in it all the time. You've got to be to the point where you can't make mistakes, and that requires a lot of dedication. And I didn't feel I had that type of dedication, to do that. I probably had the skill sets. My teacher was quite disappointed with me, actually, because I didn't want to follow that route. But anyway, I by the age of 14, I decided I wanted to join bands, because I still like pop music at that time and rock music. And I joined a sort of punky, heavy metal type outfit, which is ridiculous, really, because I was a piano player, and they left me no room to play parts, really. Nothing effective, anyway. They'd be all gronking away with loud instruments and all that, and playing the piano with that was quite boring. I mean, I'd have to just play the chords along with them. Anything else you wouldn't hear. So, but later on, I started influencing the band to my way of thinking, and we became far more experimental. And I wouldn't use the word. Well, it was progressive, but not in prog rock sense. It was progressive in the sense that I wanted to experiment and look at new ways of creating songs. So I bent the band to my design in the end, and because of that, because we went through a few iterations of different members. One of them was was Derek.
I was 21, I think it was, 21 years old, at the end of the apprenticeship, because during that time, Brian Cooper, my good friend still today, my boss then, had taught me so much about music theory, that I wanted to put it into practice. And as I told you earlier, I applied for the local band job, which I got, and I really enjoyed that. I learned so much from these fellas, not only about the theory and everything that goes with being in a little band. There's a lot more than just playing and knowing what you're doing.
I'm working in an awful lot of bands, because I think even by the age of 19 or 20, I could see that it was precarious. You could put a lot of work into your band, and then other members would let you down, and that seemed to be a recurrent theme. It was very difficult to get people that was as dedicated to music as you were, which which I think anyone who wants to start in bands should be aware of. Make sure all your members are as keen as you are and as willing to work, because it is hard work, and keen to practice and make the band as good as it can be. Otherwise, they're wasting your time. So you need to learn, if you're starting off in a band at a young age, I would say don't be afraid to be kind but ruthless as well. Don't be nasty to people. Not everyone is cut out to be a musician, but if they're certainly not interested, then it's best to talk to them and say, we want people that's interested. You've got to explain this, and as I said, be kind about it. Don't say we want you out or anything like that. Just, I wish I could be as diplomatic then as I am now about it. We might have filtered out the people that weren't keen and not put me off. But anyway, that was then. By the age of 21, I stopped playing in bands, full stop. I associate myself with certain musicians, but bands were out. Any band I work in from there on is in a professional sense. I play as a player. I get paid separately. It's so it's a band by association rather than, hey, we're a club.
There's too many rocky sort of bands that play the same type of stuff, which in Swansea people love, which is strange really, but they like the Stereophonics, the Manic Street Preachers, that type of rock, and there's not much, unless you go to a specialist place which is like a jazz club or blues club. Most of the pubs seem to be playing the same sort of style of music, which is basic rock. I was in a band that played that type of stuff, and those used to go down well because that's what people like.
You need to give local bands a springboard so they can eventually move out of the local area as well. If the local scene doesn't get supported,
You're like every band.
It kind of causes the bands to stagnate, and not just that, it then kills the local scene as well, and you don't want that to happen. So Neath is a pretty good local scene. So.
Yeah, like
and I said it's well supported.
Yeah, it has good venues. They do.
Yeah.
Kiwis when it opens again. I'm sure I've seen a band or two playing Eden. Bands playing the big cam all the time.
The Arch.
The Arch. Oh yeah, the Arch.
Yeah, there's bands in the Arch. Yeah.
The Arch.
God, there's even bands in Merlin's. So like, yeah.
In Merlin's.
Yeah, I'd say almost every single pub, maybe bar the Weatherspoons, has live music, which is fantastic.
And in Swansea as well, there's loads.
Loads, yeah.
There's a scene, I don't know what it's called now. Sin, a lot of bands playing Sin. Murphy's, there's loads of bands in there.
Bridgend is a perfect example of local bands being supported, because then out of that came Bill for My Valentine, Funeral for a Friend, and The Automatic. So
Automatic are Welsh?
Yeah, from Bridgend. Yeah. So
did not know that.
That's like, when you support your local scene enough, things like that can happen. So yeah, I think
like Neck Deeper from Wrexham.
Yeah,
they got massive thanks to the local music scene.
Definitely.
And then they got recognised like by the guy who runs Warped Tour. Checked them out Warped Tour, and they're huge, and they're selling out stadiums now. That's mental.
Yeah, exactly.
My first band was All Originals, which was called Horizon. That was back in 1980. That consisted of my two brothers, bass player, singer. Not much call for original music around at that time, but that was my first band. Then I joined a couple of soul bands, a couple of rockish bands, And now at the moment I'm in a blues band and a 9-piece soul band, which is going along pretty well.
I've had the luxury of expanding my horizons musically, certainly in terms of the music I've created, mainly because of this degree course, because it was required. But ironically enough, even from the get-go, from day one, year one, it was always about working with other people. And ultimately, you ended up working on your own. Although that didn't work out for me, I worked with people all the time. And I found that to be the most productive and the most rewarding experiences of all. But it has allowed me to expand. I'm interested in all music, so styles of music matter to me, whether it be, hard rock, heavy metal, driven material, or very gentle acoustic things, from all sides in between to heavy synthetic, lots of synthesizers, to some orchestral things. So that afforded me an opportunity to explore these things from reggae to R&B. They're all musical suits, if you like. And I just like to have a very big, full wardrobe.
Well, me and the drummer Josh have very similar music tastes.
Metalcore and hardcore.
Metalcore, hardcore. More recently, I've been getting into a bit of deathcore as well. I like a little bit of thrash. When I say that, I mean I really like Megadeth and Slayer, those two. But metalcore and hardcore would be the main. Yeah, definitely the main two. A bit of pop punk actually as well. Yeah, pop punk too.
And some cheesier stuff. Like I do like a bit of the 1975.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think pop punk and metalcore, I think as a genres actually have quite a bit in common, because metalcore obviously has the breakdowns and stuff like that, but pop punk and metalcore have one thing in common: that's most metalcore bands, pop punk bands, have massive choruses,
like really punchy ones,
really punchy hooks,
like really punchy when they get.
So I'd say our music is quite hook heavy. So yeah, it's technical but hook heavy. Yeah.
That being said, like the other members aren't into such heavy stuff as we are.
Rory would be like alternative metal, groove metal.
Yeah, thrash.
Dan be blues.
Yeah, Dan be blues. I think
Reese.
Reese his pop punk. Reese likes All Time Low or whatever.
He also really,
he just really catchy riffs because of it.
No, he's also into stuff like.
He likes Architects.
He likes cheesier stuff as well, like Skillet and Starset and stuff like that. So. He's definitely the poppier side of heavier music, but he still has a good music taste, definitely.
And it all just meshes, is it? It
meshes into one, yeah. So we can't say that it's a little combination of everything, really.
It's worked out pretty well as well.
Yeah, it really has.
You didn't think that people who are into such varying types of music could actually make music everybody likes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Orchestral music that blends in electronic sounds in a seamless way. My argument in orchestral music is that electronics have been around. Instruments have been around for 60 years at least. Usable ones anyway. And they're still not in the mainstream in orchestral music. It's still considered a bit odd. So I'm trying to make sure that whatever the piece is, even the most gentle of pieces, has some electronics in there. You don't, as I said, you don't always recognize it that way. For instance, let me give you an example of that. In the piece I just written, there's a section in there, and you'd think it's like a glockenspiel, with a belly sound, or what they call it, celesta. It's like a little piano with bells, right? Celesta is an acoustic instrument, but they only span about 3 or 4 octaves, right? And they've been around since about the 1880s, and they were adopted very quickly. Tchaikovsky used them almost straight away, and they've been used ever since. But I wanted that sound with a glissando that starts really low down, almost to the range of a full piano. So you can't get a Celesta to do that. And I wanted to sound the action of a harp, but with a Celesta sound. So I used physical modelling to produce a Celesta style sound, and I used glissando. I promed up a glissando maker, if you like, because it's quite hard to get a natural glissando like plucking. I do have software so I trigger a key and it goes up and down. I set what scales and octaves to do, and it just blends in perfectly. And yet you think it's an acoustic instrument. You would not know it's not an acoustic instrument, but it's but what it does, it can't be done on the real things. And that's the point. I'm using electronics because it gives facility in some things that you couldn't do otherwise. Or, I'm in the future I may use an electronic instrument to do something that would, basically things that would be impossible on acoustic instruments. That's where I use them. But sonically, you wouldn't necessarily know they're electronic. Sometimes I would use it. You can tell it's electronic and it's deliberate. But 9 times out of 10, it would be a sound that seems familiar, but it's completely new. And it's played in a way that couldn't be played naturally.
Well, the music that I make, we were talking about writing earlier on, it's generally with somebody else, the partnership. That really hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. The styles, yes, there are many styles that we write. I don't think it's changed for any reason other than the writer's emotion. You feel like you want to write a piece, and that's how it is. It hasn't changed because of anything. It's just how you feel at the time.
I was talking to a good friend of ours earlier on, and I said to him, in a way, it's like you have the bait on the end of the hook, and once the fish has taken it, all you have to do is wind it in and pull it in and just let it be what it always wanted to be.
That's right. I think perhaps the music you make, the music we record now, or the music we're invited to listen to on the radio, that's changed because of fashion. I think this is just another subject. That's changed a lot, as we all know. When you listen to, like Radio 1, for example. When Radio 1 started, I remember it starting, and there was one station there playing hundreds of different styles of music. It's great. And now there are hundreds of stations playing one style of music. Love it or hate it, but that's what's happening. It's all very focused now, and I don't think that's very good for people's education or in music anyway.
I think there's an element as well of too much of a good thing isn't, and you can overly dilute a product to the point where it has no substance.
That's how it's getting, I think.
I joined through various people that I knew, and we just got together. That's majority of the bands is somebody knew me and they got me in. Or talking at a pub and then we sort of joined the band, started a band together. That's majority of them. Another one then is mainly the guitarist that I'm in a band with now at the moment. He's got me into a few bands, and then he's left a few bands. So but that's mainly it. The reason why I've left, sometimes because the band just tends to fold up after a while. It loses its attraction, you get bored and whatever, then you just split up. There's other reasons. 2 bands I've been in, there's been a clash of personalities between various members, and then I just left, or they've got rid of me because where I weren't good enough, or clash of personalities more the point. And that's the reason.
We started it.
We started it really. So after we started the band, we messaged people, local musicians from the area, and just basically whoever was interested joined. So that was Rory Merson,
Reese Bendel, Dan Phillips.
Dan Phillips, yeah.
And they're actually they're actually very talented as well.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, good. And nice people as well, which is the main thing.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be in a band with people you don't get on with.
No, like it didn't even really matter like if they weren't that talented, because when Kings of Leon released their first album, their bassist couldn't even play bass.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So like talent comes, but like being nice doesn't. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, because Colin and Lorraine persuaded me to. No. It's true. They were recording backing tracks here, a load of backing tracks. It was a heck of a lot of work, and it was, coming to the end. And they said, "Well, why don't you come and play the guitar now in the ABBA group?" I said, "No, I've had enough of that now. I'm too old to go doing all that again." And then they asked again. So I said, "Yes, all right, go on then. You can't resist it, can you?" So I joined the ABBA group, and it was great. Excuse me. It was excellent. The music was fabulous, and the people were great. It was a great 11 years of playing ABBA music. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was great. But like all things, it came to an end because of there were so many ABBA groups about. Really, that's what happened, and the work was thin on the ground. But we had a wonderful time, and we met some great people over the years. But do it all again. Wonderful.
We answered an advert. I think Peter explained that. The other two members, the other girl singer and the guitarist, and we answered the ad, and they were going to use pre-made backing tracks, and we heard them and we thought they were awful. We didn't say it so much, but we thought they are horrible backing tracks. I don't want. So me and Peter then set out then to transcribe all ABBA's music, or all the popular music, I should say, which is nearly 2 hours worth. And we used the studio to make our own backing tracks. And that involved me listening carefully to the parts, making sure they're all correct, programming synths and all that, because ABBA did use quite a lot of synthesis. We also laid then on the backing tracks a lot of the extensive backing vocals, which Lorraine and Peter done most of that. But the idea was, anyway, that we I think it was money driven, to be honest with you. That's why we started. Because we had no wish, being artistic bods, we had no wish to play in a tribute band. It seemed a very, not below us, but it seemed a bit silly, tribute to another band, It's different from playing covers. You pretending to be them, and that didn't fit well with us. So, okay, if we're going to do that, there's good money in it. If we're going to do it, we'll do it very faithfully. So we done the backing tracks and we played the parts. Pretty, some people found it hard to tell between us and ABBA. They thought we, some of the recordings were ABBA. That's how close they were. And it sounded that way live as well. So the idea was we do it faithfully, but we'd send it up as well. So the stage show was largely based on a big send-up. So we'd be taking the mick out of the fact that we are pretending to be ABBA. It would be done subtly. You wouldn't know whether that's happening, but it became quite apparent once you see in the show. A lot of jokes and mucking about, and it was great fun. I have to say, as Peter said, it was a good 11 years, but the work died out a bit towards the end. There was a little bit of tension in the band, not all the time, but occasionally things would blow up a bit, and And from my personal point of view, since I'd done all the rigging, sometimes I did feel a little bit shortchanged when somebody got a bit, annoyed if something didn't quite work. Well, give me a hand. That's what I felt like saying. And you get a bit aggrieved, but that's not the reason. I think the main reason was just not enough work, really. And 11 years is a long time to. It was a pretty big show, a lot of heavy gear, so I was tired.
We don't really. The blues band I'm in at the moment, the singer tends to phone up venues to try and get work in, but on Facebook, and that's basically it. That's the only advertising we do. But with the soul band I'm in, we got a guy there who he's like a manager. He phones up and he puts things on the internet through the band page, and we get work from there. But mainly from his perseverance of phoning up venues, that's why we get work, and that's our advertising mainly through the GSL band page on the internet, mainly Facebook.
Ooh, I don't know. What do you think?
When someone responds back, when a pub or a venue responds back,
Yeah.
that's when we're ready. We're ready now. Like if we had to have a gig now, we'd be ready right now. If we're being honest.
Yeah. We could totally play a gig right now.
Yeah.
Well, the irony is that despite, as I said earlier, my first public performance at the age of 5 years old in the local chapel, and I had done this until my early 20s in a variety of things, with concerts, with school, and this and the other, singers' nights in folk clubs. I actually found myself being drawn more to wanting to be in a studio environment because it allowed you the opportunity to hone the product to perfection and then present it. I came to think of it in the way that this mightn't be true of everyone, but when you bought a Rembrandt painting, you didn't go and see him painting live. You bought the finished product, and this is true of, I think, not everyone, but in many cases, it's very true. What you're buying is what you're accessing is the finished product, and I was exposed to so much and an incredibly wide range of music growing up. Growing up in the 1960s was an incredible time. The 70s, the 80s, what a rich tapestry of popular music, but also orchestral music. I was in the school choir, and we were doing Handel, Handel's Messiah. So there was an enormous range of music of all sorts that I was exposed to. So when it actually came to playing live, it was almost the thing I didn't want to do again, but it was something I'd always done, and I found myself just over 23 years ago being in a scenario where I was actually making the transition from playing live for pleasure to being paid for it, and there's quite a transition there, and although it wasn't what I would necessarily have gone for, as I say, my first desire was to be right here in this environment. But I've taken an enormous amount from playing live as well, which I didn't expect to get. And yes, I mean, I have enjoyed it enormously for all of those years. So, yes.
I enjoy playing live music. I haven't done an awful lot of it for a bit because I've been studying. Prior to that, I enjoyed playing music, but I also used to do the rigging. So it was double-edged. I'd play for an hour and a half, and that was great, and that was all fun and everything. But but I'd be out for over 14 hours a day, taking gear back and forth to the gig, setting it up, waiting till everyone finishes, break it down, and come back in the small hours. And after, was it 12 or so years of that, it tires you out. Since I haven't played live, as I said, that said, I did do a recital of my own music whilst I was in the university. Well, that was a roast because my music was by this point so difficult to play, and I had to play it. That was quite a sweat because it was, as I said, I did make it really difficult to play. So I wasn't deliberate either. It's just that's the way it came out.
It's very satisfying, and there is nothing you can compare with it. If you're in the recording studio, you can do things again and again and again, but you have this tightrope when you're playing live, and there's no second chance, and that's it. You're on the edge, and you've got to come up with it, and I like that. And it also gives you that particular scenario gives you an edge, I think, to create instantly. Ad lib, if you like, that's what I'm looking for. But it's a nice feeling, I fancy, and it gets the best out of people.
I think for me, that epiphany, the big turning point was that moment in 1980, early in 1980, when I bumped into a group of people who became very good friends. They called themselves at the time Old Hat. And it was the quality of the songwriting and the performance and the delivery, and it was just on a level which I hadn't really come to understand until I saw that. They changed everything for me in many ways, and if you like, they sort of reset the bar at a much higher level, which I then aspired to and found that, with time and a certain amount of effort, that I was able to reach. With that sort of new repertoire of songs, I wrote much fewer songs, wrote a lot less, but I made sure that I was happy with everything that I had done. They weren't sort of throwaway. And I developed another sort of conscious means of consciousness in terms of lyric writing, and the content that I was writing about. I suppose the highlights in making music have been the astonishing people that I've had the great fortune to work with. From Lorraine King, we used to have a duo back in 2001 when we called ourselves High and Dry, which was an enormous amount of fun. And I adored the music as well. It was a joy to work with Jonathan Lewis when we called ourselves Casual Arrangement, which was terrific. I had the good fortune to work with Julie Jackson, wonderful singer and a dear friend. And when we call ourselves the Ginger Nut because she's ginger and bonkers. My mentor and guide, the older brother, the young uncle I never had, Vivian John Morris, Spiv, the late Spiv, who was just incredible, and what a fabulous man he was. And until the formation of what was then LA Connections 12 years ago, with your good self and John and Julie and Law, the enormously talented Colin Evans and our dear friend Mr. Paul Smith playing drums, and we debuted that in 2006 as LA Connections and went on to reinvent that as the Californians, add a few more friends to it, and the last time we did that was 4 years ago in the Grand Theatre, which is absolutely amazing. And as a consequence of that, I had the great luxury and good fortune to work with both yourself and Lorraine in a kind of much more manageable format as Americana Gold, and it's just as good as it gets.
I've been in quite a few bands where I got a lot of flatulence, which basically when you're confined to a band van, and there's only 2 windows and there's 7 of us in the van. That's quite funny at times, but no, that's no, I memorable things. It's just enjoying it and really enjoying what you're doing, enjoying who you're with. That's the most memorable things is the experience playing at different venues, Yeah, played at different venues, nice venues. You get some really bad venues. Some pubs are really, really good. Some pubs are really bad. Um, but nothing that really stands out apart from being with people that you enjoy being with, enjoying the music.
Two things. My latest composition, which is the first real composition I'm happy with, where I think I've reached a world-class standard. And it's taken me a long time because I could hear things and I didn't know how to achieve those things. I knew where the weaknesses were, but I didn't know how to put those weaknesses right. And of course, over time you learn, you get as that right. And the outcome is after what's it, nearly 40 years, I've got a piece of music. I think, yeah, I can leave that go. It's not perfect, but I can leave it go to anyone in the world, any conductor in the world, and they can play it, and I wouldn't be embarrassed by it. I can improve on it, but I won't be embarrassed by it. That's one highlight, so I'm pleased with that. And it's not something for anybody else, but for me, my own personal satisfaction. That other people might not even like it. I don't care. I like it. I've done something I like, and that's the joy of music. You can do that. It's for its own sake, see. And the other highlight was with ABBA, actually, the ABBA tribute. And we had a gig, Lakeside, I think it was called. It was down in the south part of England. And we turned up expecting to be, we knew we were headlining, but we didn't expect to be the only act. And there were thousands of people in the field. It was pouring rain, but the stage was like built up on this, literally on the lakeside. There was a lake there, and the stage was on the lake, and looking onto this field. There was a big crew, big light show, big PA, and there were, I think, 12 of us on stage playing. So it was the full, ABBA had a lot of session musicians with them in the real ABBA did, and we matched them. We had backing singers, a lead guitarist. We had Peter on playing the Bjorn part. We had a guy called Jonathan Lewis on the bass, lovely player. We had Paul Smith on the drums, who was one of the top drummers in the country. Ridiculous player. And Wynne, then the solo guitarist, who's again, he's incredibly well versed in music. He won Eisteddfod actually for composition, so give you some idea how good he is. And it was bouncing. It was the best atmosphere on stage I've ever had. I think obviously the people are there to listen to ABBA music, but I think they appreciated the fact that there was a lot of top musicians on that stage playing it accurately and playing it with real. It was cooking. It was really steaming along that one, and that's stuck in my head as my finest moment in life. I know I've played my own music and it didn't quite compare. I enjoy playing my own music and I enjoy people appreciating it, but that was just something about that. It was a riot. It was brilliant. So that made doing that tribute worthwhile, if nothing else.
Again, it's the people you work with, I think, Terry. And then, of course, therefore, the music that they provide or is provided for them. Highlights all the time. It's wonderful. I suppose the serious music making started when I met Sheila and Cheryl Parker. It's a wonderful thing. Lovely girls from Swansea. And we teamed up with Paul Carman, another fabulous writer.
Yes.
I made a little group called No Hat Moon, and recorded quite a few things. And while we were recording, we started doing backing singing, backing vocals on recordings for different people. We had quite a lot of work out of that. And we used to go and sing for all sorts of people on their records and things like that. And I think that, talking of highlights, those would have been the highlights. Meeting some wonderful, famous singers and players, and having to go in there and play the guitar or sing on their music. Fantastic. A real privilege at the time, Of course, an enormous education, not only musically, but working with people, how to work with different people. Priceless. I owe a lot to that time.
Yes, that's the education. This is what Oscar Wilde would tell us, that anything worth learning can't be taught. Because you can't, in a way.
You've got
you
to
have
glean it.
Yeah, you've got to teach
to
yourself it from experience.
Yeah.
For me anyway, living in
You can comment on the Belfast side, because I have no clue what happens in Belfast.
living in Bridgend and in Neath, there's definitely a much bigger hardcore, post-hardcore scene in Wales, and metalcore to an extent as well. While Belfast is kind of known for being a punk rock city, and it's evident because growing up there, most of the bands that would play in, let's say the equivalent of the Duke, which is a metal club in Neath, is the punk club, the Warzone in Belfast, which mostly just plays punk, hardcore punk, and ska music and oi music and stuff like that. So yeah, it's the bands differ a lot. Not in talent though. They're both areas are very talented bands.
Kiwis used to have a lot of hardcore gigs when it was open.
Yeah.
Kiwis gigs were amazing.
Missed out on those.
I don't mind it's opening again soon.
Oh yeah, sick.
Hopefully the pits will return.
I enjoy both bands in a different sort of way. The GSL soul band, I enjoy that because you've got some brilliant musicians in the band. You've got some not so brilliant, but as a whole, we bond well together, and we enjoy it. We really enjoy it. That's more the personalities between various members of the band keeps you entertained, and it's fun being in the band. Same as the blues band. Then you've got Maggie, who I played with in various other bands. We got a rapport going, and we have a good laugh on stage. There's different personalities that makes the enjoyment within the band.
I would just find a day where everybody's free, isn't it?
Yeah. Because it's even though it's 2 days a week, it's not the same days every week. It's not like a Tuesday and a Wednesday every week. Some days it'll be because of some members of the band are in employment.
Yeah, and they work shifts.
Not me.
And they work various shifts.
Yeah. So one day it could be a Monday and a Tuesday. And the 1 week it could be a Monday and a Tuesday. Another week it could be a Sunday
and a Wednesday.
Yeah. So it's quite random. But we do find time. We do find time twice a week. It's pretty easily enough.
And the guys working there always have time for us as well, which is good.
Both my mother played piano. Not in a I would say in a professional sense, but she enjoyed it. She took up lessons when she was young, but I think her teacher was a bit brutal and put her off. But she enjoyed playing the piano. And my father played the harmonica, which is not an easy instrument to play, really. It's not to get a good tune out of. And he was pretty good at it, though he kept it fairly close to his chest, that he could play. And of course, my uncle, who influenced my older brothers in particular to play, he was a jazz drummer, swing jazz, steady playing, and he had been a gigging musician. He had played in jazz bands, and it was his hobbyist attitude, I think, that rubbed off on us boys, So yes, it's definitely in the family, and because as I said, I've never known really a time without music being a lifestyle almost.
Well, my aunt, who ironically enough named Novello after Ivan Novello, my aunt Novello, or Vella we used to call her, was a respected singer in chapel, which was a focal point for much music back then. Um, and my father played the piano, not wonderfully well, but well enough. So it was in the family. I had my first public performance in chapel at the age of 5 at a quarterly school, singing Silent Night in the pulpit on my own. And
Nobody sing with you.
no, and they keep having me back until I get it right.
Ever since I can remember, there's always been my 3 brothers and are all musicians. Um, you got Brian, who's a guitarist and now's gone on to bass playing. You have Gary, who um, played the drums, piano, cello, violin, anything really picks up. And then you've got Colin Evans, who's the only classically trained musician in the band, who's keyboards. So yes, I've grown up with music from a very young age. So my parents, um, not musical, uh, so you weren't brought up through the parents' side of it. It's just what we picked up, listened to music, and think, right, we can do that, and we've just picked up instruments from a very young age and started playing.
Excuse me, my grandfather was a musician. He was the deputy organist in the chapel. So when the organist was ill, he'd go up and play the organ. And, he also played the euphonium in the Navy. Was it in the Navy? When he was in the Navy, he played the euphonium in some band or other anyway. So I expect this will come down from him.
We're not going into it being like, oh, we're going to be the biggest band in the world or anything like that, because I think you can't start off too big headed and with too lofty of ambitions. But our plans are to obviously still stay in the band
and just go where it takes us.
Yeah, go where it takes us. Yeah, hopefully get a first gig. That's a good starting point.
Like every band has some beginnings. Like Blink-182 started playing in the basement of Tom's house.
Yeah, exactly.
I like helping people, so I mean, I don't need to be. I don't like being in the spotlight, so compositions do suit me in that respect. I can write the music and keep it well out of the way. So even if I became successful, I don't want too much fuss, and make sure that I don't. Beyond that, I just enjoy being a technician in music as well. That's why I like the technical aspect, because I can help people and let them get on with what they want to do. I enjoy that. It's so I'd probably be either lecturing or assisting teaching. That's something I can go into now. I think I certainly don't want to be rigging, because I think once you get over 50, that gets pretty tough on your body, So, but yeah, composition and technical work to help others. That's what I'll be doing from now on. I'll never stop. There's no point retiring. There's nothing to retire to. I'm already enjoying myself.
Well, I'd like to carry on doing what I've been doing. It's a personal journey. I have this repertoire, if you like, this back catalogue of stuff that I've written for all of these years. And I have no great desire to want to go out and promote this as a performer. I'd be quite happy to let anyone who wanted to sing the stuff sing it. I am much more interested in the creation and the production, the arrangement and the creation of it. I find that process has become much more refined for me, not so much in terms of now more refined, but I found that, you know, the more I grease this wheel, the easier it turns over, for want of a better term. And sometimes it's just the doing of it that, much like Colin has said about yourself, it's an evolution.
Yeah.
So I would continue to evolve, and I sometimes find myself wanting to create in whatever way that was. So I've enjoyed working with people, and I think one of the best things you can say about working with people is that, you know, if you're in a situation whereby you can make a positive contribution, no matter how large or small, that wouldn't have been made if you weren't there, then that's as good as it gets.
So long as we get gigs coming in, then I think we'll still be going. The blues band, we don't play that often. There's a little bit of friction within the band, a little bit, but we at the moment we're still enjoying it. So whether that will go on for too long, we got an Irish tour coming up in October. So I think after that it might stop. But the GSL band, that will still keep going as long as we keep getting gigs coming in. So I can't see that split it up in a near future.
Sitting here probably. So making music, you know, not writing here and there, but mainly making recordings. Working with people like yourself, Terry, arranging music and putting it all down onto whatever they put it onto now, CDs or MP3, I don't know, or sticks or whatever it is. Sticks and stones. Yes, I think we can't stop. It's a calling, really. And,
Yes.
We'll be here forever, I think.
Yeah. There's something that I can understand about why does an artist art? Why does a musician muse? Why does a writer write? For the simple reason they cannot not.
No, they can't.
Because if we couldn't not, we'd be down the pub.
Yeah, we do.
Friends with bar the rhythm guitarist Rory, who I knew of but I didn't actually know him. I've become friends with him now through being in the band with him. But yeah, we haven't really even had a squabble. So no, we're pretty good.
Yeah, like we get on. Like if you have a problem, with something, we talk it out.
Yeah.
We don't quarrel or whatever. It goes well.
Yeah, definitely.
What I've discovered from my experience of working with variety of incredible people, really, that the most important thing of all is, beyond the ability to hit the mark metaphorically, to be able to play what is required, the most important thing of all is actually the people themselves, is how well you interact as people. You know, that's in many ways, that's much more important. As I say, in 1980, at the age of 23, I found myself rubbing shoulders with some people that you know, and had a massive influence on me, and that really kind of drove me down a road of wanting to discover this element, the recording and production, the arrangement, and the construction of a finished piece of music, which I embarked upon in 1982, when I bumped into a gentleman named Howard Coos, and my first recordings were done then. And from then until now, I've had an enormous satisfaction of working with a tremendous range of people, including yourself and Colin, Lorraine, the Californians, all of the ensembles that I've been involved with. It's a family thing, really, and I found it to be the most incredible family I've ever known. So yes, you know, there have been so many incidences and episodes which have taken me to this point.
I met a guy called Paul Philippart when I was about 20, and he was like-minded. He loved experimental music. He was a great guitarist, but his ideas were absolutely crazy. I mean, his composition ideas, just so left field, and I loved it. It was wayward, but with a little bit of backtracking. Like he'd come up with this mad idea, and you could make so much of it. With he wasn't formally trained, so I would have to go back then and sort of break his ideas down into formalized terms, and then we make something of that. And we produced a lot of bizarre but wonderful music in a period of about 10 years. At that time, though, I was working in a normal job. I was doing floors and all that for my living, so I could afford to play around. But gosh, I learned a lot because it was all about composition at that point. We had no pretense about playing it to anyone or doing anything with it. It was just for its own sake, and that was great. After Paul, then there was a bit of a gap. Then I stopped playing for a bit. Then, and I think I was in my mid-30s. Then I had a phone call from Paul actually that he had met Lorraine, who became my partner later, but and she wanted somebody to write for a musical called about Dylan Thomas, and Paul was asked, because he already knew Lorraine at the time, so he phoned me, are you interested? Another time I was going through a divorce with my first wife, and I just wanted things to settle down, so I said, let me have a think about it. Anyway, a few weeks later I rang me back, is it still on? And that's when I came here first, because it was all to do with the studio. And we bought a musical play. It was almost like a multimedia show, in fact, because it had dance, music, acting, and visuals. And we put it on around the local area in small theatres. And that was good. It was a good way back in, because, as I said, I sort of almost, I wouldn't say give up music, but I really put it on the back burner up to that point. And due to the divorce, I had nothing to lose either, so I decided to turn professional as a player at that time as well. So because there was no mortgage or anything, everything was blown up basically. So I could afford. I was a freelance. I could afford to become a musician and take the risk. So yeah, from then on, really that. Everyone I've met is since then really of any note, and I've met a lot of people, but I can't name everyone. But it's been good. Of course, there's a lot of session musicians that I've met through this place as well, and they're amazing people who learn so much from them.
Very good. We all enjoy it. We all have a bit of a laugh. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is if some of us don't enjoy it, then it shows up with other members. So as long as we all enjoying it and having a good laugh on stage, having a good laugh backstage, then we'll always have fun at the end of the day. So as long as there's fun in the band, then it's a good laugh. It's a good atmosphere to be around.
Well, all sorts over the years, starting out with a local band, and then I got into recording, and of course you meet a lot of different people then, all different styles, even through the punk era, even recording those guys, which was great. I mean, quite simple musically, but good fellas and down to earth, and no nonsense with it. It's great. I quite enjoy. although I don't like the music, but it doesn't matter. But it gives you more experience of different genres and working with people. That's the main thing. That's the main thing. Being able to work with different people. And of course, you do get a lot of people that it is difficult to work with, not because of the music, because of other reasons. That's the way it goes sometimes. All the same. But the rock music and the solo singers, all sorts really, and it's been great and a great education. You can't beat it.
Mainly Danny Worst, not from Austin Alexandria. Just simply, not just because I like the tone of his voice, but because how versatile he is as well. He can go very gruff and then very, very clean sounding as well. And at the same time, he can do really proper piercing highs and then like really guttural lows as well. Like
his range is phenomenal.
His range is unbelievable. Yeah,
his range is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really good.
His cleans are solid as well.
Yeah, they really are. Actually, I was watching a video of him recently at the Mitch Lucker tribute concert, the Suicide Silence, and he played. It was Disengage. He was perfect. He was amazing. I never didn't realize his lows were that good. So yeah, for me it'd be Danny Worst now.
His lows are outstanding. Like his vocals in Moving On are phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's pretty much all cleans.
Unreal.
Like it's very rare, like for a guy who vocalizes that sort of music to nail highs, lows, and cleans so well.
And then he has a country album as well. Yeah, no, he's insane.
He's like a Swiss Army knife for music.
He's insane.
I like a lot of drummers that play with Frank Zappa because technically they are brilliant. There's a lot of jazz drummers that are brilliant. I thought Phil Collins was brilliant, but then after listening to him over the years, you realise that he's not as good as what I thought back in the 70s and 80s. But I am got a particular favourite drummer. But you have got anybody that's played with like Frank Zappa, Chad Wackerman, Chester Thompson, all brilliant drummers. There's so many of them in the world. My favourite Swansea drummer is Paul Smith because he's a brilliant drummer and he's a good mate of mine. So.
It's strange as I reflect on that. I have found the things that have had the biggest impact on my life have started with the question, I wonder if I can. And when I was 16, I'd been playing the guitar for about 8 years. It was a difficult education because there weren't guitar tutors in a popular music field then. So you learned as best you could. And I had been learning covers of songs that I liked from the Beatles and the Stones and the Kinks and going into the early 1970s then. And I remember having this thought at the age of 16 in my bedroom at the time thinking, I wonder if I can write a song. And as I say, the things that have had the biggest impact on me from that point on have started with that question, I wonder if I can, whatever. So I did. I managed to write a song, and I would never resurrect it for anyone's sake. But it was, as Lao Tzu would tell us, that first step on a 1,000-mile journey. And I wrote an awful lot of songs then. I wrote a few hundred songs because I was experimenting with chords, one chord to the next. What is, what A minor seventh to B flat major seventh going to sound like? For example, I'm just looking at the intervals between one chord and the next. And I remember years and years later reading the wonderful description. It said chords and their relationship to each other. And I found later on through this experimentation that I was developing a year for a relationship between one chord and the next, which served me very, very well in the years to come. And I found that I still probably keep 3 or 4 of those songs because I'm still happy with them. But I had this sort of major epiphany at the age of 23 when I met some people that we both know that you'd been involved with then, and that was the first time I heard your name. And because you'd produced a 6-track demo from some people who I saw playing live, and I was absolutely blown away by the quality of the songwriting, and the musicianship. And there was and I thought I could play the guitar at the time, and on one level I could, but not on that level. And I befriended these people, and they became my dear friends and guides and mentors. I learned, like yourself, so much more than just this chord to the next chord. It's all about the process, and they were days I wouldn't trade for 1 nanosecond of. That's been an evolution to date, and I'm still involved in the process.
Early with the young band I was in, we didn't want to play covers. We wanted to write our own songs, and we all took turns to write stuff. In the end, I was doing most of the writing because I seemed to have a flair for it. But after that, it got, as I told you, it got more experimental, and now it's purely orchestral music. I don't write anything else. I don't write songs. I write large-scale works and chamber works and stuff like that. Usually with electronics, though, oddly enough. The electronics are blended in with the orchestral music almost seamlessly. Sometimes you can't tell it's an electronic instrument. It sounds natural, because it's one of my expertise is synthesis. So, I don't like the classic buzzy synth sounds, not with an orchestral setting. Just don't sound right. It's like an opera singer singing pop songs. It doesn't sound right. Despite that they're brilliant, it just don't sound right, and some things just don't mix. So the synthesis I use, blends well.
Well, I didn't really. I wasn't aware of making a step. I just got involved in. I sort of co-write with people. I'm not a writer really. No, I'm not a writer. But if somebody comes with a song or a set of lyrics, then yes, I could. That's easier for me then. I can pitch in and write the music for those particular words, and that's about the extent of it. I can't write words, but that's the extent of it. Quite enjoyable. It's been, I've started doing it many years ago, and still do it now if called upon. It's just the music, really.
Loads, I'd say.
Well, like for me, for the drums, it's usually a mix of Architects, Northern, and Parkway.
For me, vocals, it would be a mixture of Winston McCall's vocals in Parkway, Danny Worsnop's vocals in Asking Alexandria as well. And I've recently been practicing a bit more of my lows. So CJ McMahon from Thy Art Is Murder as well. So you can kind of tell just from those answers where our music tastes kind of lie, yeah.
But like for other members, it'd be stuff like Lamb of God,
yeah,
blues.
Rory, the rhythm guitarist, is like a perfect circle, Tool, stuff like that.
Yeah, Lamb of God as well.
Yeah, Lamb of God.
Like I found Rory through him doing a Lamb of God cover on Instagram that knocked my head, that blew my head off.
Really good. Yeah, that's the video that I saw as well. Yes, I'm pretty sure I sent you that and then messaged them.
It was solid.
Yeah, it was sick.
It was amazing.
To play bigger audiences, I suppose. We done the Monmouth Festival this year with about 7,000 people there, and that was a great atmosphere. The crowd liked us, and because the crowd is behind us, we tend to perform better visually, and so yeah, the big venues where you're playing to thousands of people rather than hundreds of people is that would be nice to play more of those.
Well, I found that I had the luxury, as I say, in 1982, I was introduced to a gentleman named Howard Coos, that we both know, who had a little recording studio in his basement in the Uplands, and he and I had a very productive relationship for a few years. And after that, I was just beginning to discover what was then the computer-based sequencing technology, which was arriving from what was then the brand new kid on the block, the musical instrument digital interface. So in 1989, I bumped into another mutual friend, Mr. Mark Elton. And Mark had just taken over a community-based recording studio in Slate Street in Morriston. And that was really where the whole thing began for me. I started to teach there. And there were, Mark had an Atari machine with an early version of Cubase One on it. And that introduced me to that aspect of production and arrangement. And it afforded me that, and it was still a tape-based machine, although Howard's was a 4-track. Mark went from 8 to 16. And I would involve myself in small sort of tape machine, Porter Studio type things, cassette-based things, until the early part of this century, when I made the transition to the digital realm with a mini disc-based 4-track recording system from Tascam, which was very powerful. And then after that, I made the transition to completely computer-based material using a PC, and that's gone on for a little while. And a few years ago, I finally made the transition to using an Apple Macintosh, and now I run Logic 9 on that, and it's an enormously powerful system. I will probably never need anything else because it's so flexible and there's so much power in it that why would you want anything else?
Well, these days I use, like everybody, we use computers because digital audio it's so adaptable, accurate, reliable now. I developed my own software tools. I've studied DSP, the theory of digital signal processing. So I use that. I write software then to make tools that I need. If I could probably buy them, but I rather make them myself because it's cheaper. If I don't have something, I go make it, in software. But beyond that, I use the usual stuff, Logic, or I use a program called Reaper actually, which I love because it looks dowdy, but it's so powerful, and it doesn't cost a lot, and it's got more features than them all put together, I think. So you've got to customize it yourself. So a lot of people don't like it because it doesn't hold your hand, but when you set it up your way, it's very, very powerful. It's even got its own programming language built in to do new jobs if you need that. Obviously, I'm being a keyboard player. I use a lot of instruments as well, which are always synthesizer based or. And of course, I've done a lot of engineering, so I've got the old analog desk here, or I can mix in the box, in the computer, whatever is needed. There's not much technology in music I haven't used. Let's put it that way, which you would expect it, since I got a master's degree in it.
Yes, I use a lot of technology, if that's what you can call it now. It's we've gone through like you, Terry, the tape machines, multi-track tape machines, which served well for years and years and years. But now these computers, they're nigh on perfect. Sonically, they're wonderful. I don't see how it can get any better.
Not really.
No.
I remember the days when you had the Studio 24-track there, and that was like a pinnacle in many ways of recording.
Yes, it was fabulous.
And yet, these things were generally that size.
They jump over their head. I mean, I never thought I'd say it. I loved the tape recorder.
But that.
Fantastic.
I think we're the first band in South Wales that has a ginger Irish singer.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You don't see that. You don't see that a lot in South Wales.
But in terms of different sound, I don't like. It's a hard question to answer because we're not inventing a new genre or anything,
We're
but
just meshing genres.
we're meshing genres together. Yeah, like there's a bit of metalcore, bit of hard rock, bit of deathcore,
Like
bit of gent.
Like I know Dan, the bassist, is very into blues. So like a lot of our songs have bluesy bass lines.
Yeah,
So like it's kind of like, yes, basically a clusterfuck for lack of a better term.
yeah, it is. There's no. If you had to ask what genre it was, I would say
Every for lack of a better
yeah.
term.
No, I wouldn't say there was a genre. I'd say it would under the wider kind of category. It would go under metal.
Yeah.
Metalcore probably actually metalcore would probably be the. But yeah,
When I retire from my current job, then if my hands hold up, the arthritis is setting in. So if that holds up, then yes, that would be my part-time hobby come income, I suppose. But it really depends on how my health holds up. Whether I will continue it as a full-time sort of hobby come job.
To make money, you may have to compromise your ideals, okay? But to create what truly comes from within, you cannot compromise at all. So there is a balance to be found. The business can be cruel and brutal in many ways. There's been an enormous paradigm shift in terms of the way music is produced, as we know, and certainly the way it's presented to through the internet in particular, through media, because that's no longer the way it used to be. And the old music business does not exist in the same way.
That's true.
I think, if you want to have a career in making music, there's a whole host of roads that you can travel down, but all roads lead to and from Rome. So, if you have a creative passion, then no matter what, you can't deny that. And ultimately, to do so is going to be detrimental. I think it's you can't do that. So I suppose if there is anything I would have to say to anyone who wanted to have a career in making music and being creative in that way, is unless you simply want to be someone who learns to play an instrument and then replicate what is written for you, then there are very established roads to do that. But if you're looking at wanting to have a career in making music, then there has to be some spark of creativity, because you must want to make something that wasn't there before you decided to make it. So I would have to say then, trust your instincts. I used to have a very simple way of judging anything that I'd written, which was if I'd heard somebody else record it, and if it was on somebody else was singing it on Radio 1, would I go out and buy it? And if the answer was yes, that was good enough for me.
Don't make it a career, make it a lifestyle. The rest will follow. You love music for what it is, not for what you can get out of it. And then generally the money will come your way. It may not be great, but you can scratch a living. You've got to be adaptable, of course. You've got to do some things you don't like. But if to make some cash. But on the other hand, you could do something other than music to earn your crust and enjoy the music for its own sake. That's still a career in music. You're still making music, and it can still take off if you do something creative and people like it. You will be supported in that financially. But first and foremost, enjoy the music for its own sake. Do not try to make music a currency for anything else, not even fame. If you're making music just because you want to be famous, you won't do it. Or worse, it will be short-lived and you'll be ridiculed. So don't do it. Do music because you like music. Otherwise, do something else. Lots of things can make you money or make you famous. So don't use music for those. If they can, great. If they don't, no worries. It's still great to do. And it also makes you brighter as well. Making music helps your brain. It's like learning a language. It makes your synapses all connect. And it continues to do that all your life because you always learn something new and you're always trying to improve, and that keeps your brain active, stops you getting fuddy-duddy.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the experience, and don't take it too serious, because 99.9% of pub bands will never make it big. But you've just got to enjoy it and just improve, practice, learn different styles of music, and then try and incorporate that into your playing. Play with as many musicians as you possibly can. When you first start off, you tend to be all naive, and a drummer puts so much into a song that it just sounds a mess. Whereas if you just hold back a bit, put less into it, and as you say, less is more. It keeps it basic, and then just put little fills in where needed. But just enjoy the experience, and as you get better and better, you start playing with better musicians, which brings you on a lot anyway. So you will improve. Just keep doing it and improve as you go along, and just enjoy it.
Stick to their knower. They'll know whether they want to carry on or not. And if they do, there are many threads to it. They could be players, like you say, Terry, and play music in an orchestra, travel the world. Lovely, great job. Or you could do this. You could work in a studio and produce music for all sorts of people. You could write music for film, score it. That's another avenue that brings a lot of pleasure to musicians and satisfaction when they hear the orchestra playing it. All sorts of ways you can have a career. Even doing sound in TV or film. It's still a lot of music involved in it. And I don't know whether I can give advice. We're just laying out the possibilities, really. I don't think you can give advice. You either want to or you don't want to. And, just trust your instincts, indeed.
Thank you,
Cup
Brad.
of
Thank
tea.
you for asking
Tea
us.
now.
Whoa!
Marvellous.
Well done, Terry.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
thought you were brilliant.
I thought you were more brilliant.
There's a donkey out here without hind legs.